Major support for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. And Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
It is fair beyond political correctness to wonder how much this issue of diversity plays into the actual growth and development of any initiative, any organization, or any commercial ecosystem. It is also more than just an academic exercise to consider women, minorities, and non-traditional demographics in the whole firmament of business and our lives as we know it right here in the Carolinas. Welcome back to the most widely watched source of Carolina business and public policy. I am Chris William, and we will take a stab at our current challenges here in the region through the lens of diversity in education, workforce, and technology. And later on, someone who takes things like chicken jalapeno pimento cheese biscuits, cornmeal, country ham very seriously. Greensboro-based Biscuitville Chief Burney Jennings will be here as well.
Gratefully acknowledging support by Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. Please visit us at southcarolinablues.com. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. BARINGS, a leading global asset management firm dedicated to meeting the evolving investment and capital needs of its clients. Learn more at barings.com. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Sepideh Saidi, President and CEO of SEPI Engineering and Construction, Dr. Keith Miller, President of Greenville Technical College, and special guest Burney Jennings, CEO of Biscuitville.
Welcome back to our program. Keith, good to have you back on the show. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
You bet. SEPI, glad to have you here. I'm sorry it's taken us, about a decade to finally invite you and have you on the program. So thank you. Your reputation precedes you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this issue around diversity. Keith, Greenville Tech in South Carolina recently won a Diversity in Education Award. And, diversity ends up, these are my words, ends up being pigeonholed as some corporate initiative, or in your case, an education initiative. How much more work, and by the way, congratulations on this award, but how much more work does higher ed need to do around this issue?
And it's diversity is, first of all, I guess let's clarify what diversity is. As we see it at Greenville Technical College, it's not just, a lot of people think of it as race, color of skin, but it's really not. It is that plus more. It's gender. It's differences in thought, and it's one of those things that's not a goal that you ever achieve. You have to constantly work at that. And when I look at the mission of the college, we serve a diverse community, and the only way we can serve that diverse community is by understanding and customizing, you might say, our services to each of the cultures within that community. And the only way we can customize those services is by having a diverse staff that has the expertise to make that happen. So, this is actually the second year that we've won that award, and we've done that because it isn't just a political initiative. It's something that we truly believe in, and it actually started with civil treatment training. A lot of times when you hear about organizations trying to promote diversity, you hear about their training that is specific to diversity in terms of the difference between cultures and that type of thing, which is all great. That's all wonderful training. But we took the route of civil treatment training or civility training, which basically says no matter what culture you're from, there's certain ways that you treat one another.
Certain decorum and protocol.
Absolutely.
So, Sepi, what do you think is misunderstood about this whole dialogue around diversity and how it should or needs to be included in a business, in an organization, in a community?
I don't think there's a misunderstanding. I think there's a lack of depth of understanding. So diversity, I'm passionate about diversity. And the reason I'm passionate about it is because there's a significant number of our population that are not being utilized. So if we're not encouraging women to enter workforce and to come into leadership roles, then they're underutilized. If they're not minorities, people from other countries and cultures that we don't encourage for their perspective and their participation, then we are really losing out as a country, because we have such a great perspective, and everybody who comes in from a different background brings a new perspective. So I think it's really valuable because it makes us better, it makes us more advanced, and it utilizes a great deal of the population that are not encouraged to participate.
So will diversity, and I don't want to say automatically, but will diversity semi-automatically lead to equal pay?
Well, I really am not sure if I understand your question.
Well, one of the things that's akin to diversity is this idea that women don't receive equal pay,
right?
That their men counterpart. And let's stay on male and female equal pay. Will diversity help close that gap between the delta in their pay?
I don't think diversity is going to help the gap. It has to be a real intentional initiative by leaders who could be men or women, but mostly men, to care about the closing the gap and not have disparity, to compensate individuals based on their contribution to an organization, and it should have nothing really to do with diversity. And if it is, it's a mistake, and it is. There is a gap currently, and that's wrong.
Dr. Miller, how do you come down on that?
Well, you know, I like what you said earlier, and that is, it's not just that there isn't an understanding of diversity. I think there is, but it's I think as you put it, the depth of understanding.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true, because you can look at any organization and say there's a depth, that it's a diverse organization, excuse me, but to truly understand the value of diversity and to take advantage of the value of that diversity within an organization, I think that's the depth that you're talking about. And I think when you think about the value of diversity, and to your question of equal pay between men and women, you're right, it isn't just about diversity, but when you understand the true value of that, and
it
then
goes a long way to get to equal pay.
Then you start to get to the pay issues and so on.
And I do want to talk about this understanding. It's a huge part. So with this week with Cam Newton talking about the female reporter asking a technical question or strategic question, and he thought he was the only one who thought it was funny, I think. So it shows that even for Cam, who may consider himself somebody that I may not be understood well, maybe I'm not completely included in everything. Well, now I am excluding another person based on my personal unconscious probably biases, a lot of it. So a lot of it could be unconscious, so education and understanding and conversations like this are very important.
But we've got about 2 minutes left, and I want to, before we bring our guest on, I want to ask you this. It's completely different, almost would seem random, but there's been a lot of hype and a lot of excitement around, could Amazon relocate a second headquarters? And I know you both have a little something to do with economic development here in the region. Keith, how probable is it that the Carolinas could land something like that?
Oh, I think it's very probable for that to happen. I think, you know, I have been in South Carolina for 9 years, and I guess that the thing that amazes me the most is how dynamic the environment is, and the level of entrepreneurism that I don't necessarily see in every community that I've lived in throughout my travels and my higher education career. So because of that, I would say there's a good chance that that we could land an organization like that, and it's because of the dynamic energy and the level of entrepreneurism, meaning the can-do attitude.
SEPI, if you had to lay odds that North Carolina would win that second headquarters for Amazon, what would the odds be?
I think the odds are very good, really good. I think we offer an amazing place for Amazon to come, and I would say it's a really good odds. I don't know if I can put a percentage. Being an engineer, I can't be that precise.
We're relying on you.
I think the chances are great.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Guys, thank you. Please stay with us. We have a very interesting program, 2 programs coming up in the next couple of weeks. It is a 2-part series about transportation, about infrastructure, and we will be taping it down actually on the port of Charleston, South Carolina Ports Authority. 2-part series. Joining us on that program is the CEO of the South Carolina Ports Authority, Jim Newsom. Before that, Christy Hall, the South Carolina DOT Secretary. Also on that program, Senator Larry Grooms, who is head of the Transportation Committee for the South Carolina Senate, and Clifton Parker is the president of GNP Trucking, all talking about transportation and infrastructure, a program brought to you from the South Carolina ports. It seems an easy step from your mother's breakfast table in the South to a plethora of restaurants offering homemade biscuits and the related country breakfast fare. Well, our guest represents one such place, seemingly a 50-year overnight success. Greensboro-based Biscuitville went from slinging pizza so far to 54 locations in this region whose menu is centered on the humble biscuit. Joining us now is the second-generation family owner and the current Biscuitville Chief Executive Officer, Burney Jennings. Burney, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Burney, you know, I'm saying with a smile because, you know, you can't go 10 feet in the Carolinas without running into a place that sells a biscuit.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's a little overstating it, but why would you take this humble biscuit idea and build, at least to date, 54 stores and do it so well and seemingly do it for so long?
Well, first of all, the name is Biscuitville, so biscuits is in our name. But we're in the South, so people love biscuits. And it's worked really, really well for us. You know, we started out in the pizza business, started selling the biscuits in the morning for breakfast, and it really took off from there.
But Burney, you've got all this competition. Are biscuits, I mean, 2 questions. Do you do it that well? And is there just not that much competition for it?
Oh, there's a tremendous amount of competition, but my dad taught me early on that it's not about the biscuits, it's about the people making the biscuits. And I think that's where we really make the difference. You know, we have a great team, and we're just really blessed to be able to, you know, serve our guests and customers.
So how does that translate? That the way you describe that character of the employee at Biscuitville, how does that really translate into the person that walks in the front door?
Do you mean on the guest side or the employee side?
Well, both. So, I think both, because if you say if that's what delineates you from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, so from the customer side, it really creates a halo effect for us. It's amazing. I like to use the word cult, but cult in a good way, that we have a cult following for our biscuits. But we're a family business, so it also translates into how we treat our people. So we treat them like family. And
from the buyer side or the client side or the customer side?
The buyer side, you know, from our research, you know, they tell us they absolutely love us because we're not ordinary. We're not the same as the other quick service restaurants. You know, we recently got written up in Food and Wine magazine, which is really unusual. Garden and Gun has written articles about us. So we're getting written up in these high-end magazines where a lot of our trade publications are not reporting us, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I bet. Keith, question?
Yeah, you know, that's interesting, the culture that you've created, or as you said, the cult, and I think I read that you close at 2 o'clock, so your employees can have afternoon and evening at home with their families, and I think that's wonderful. But we know, and of course, workforce development is a major thing that Greenville Technical College does, and no matter what the organization is, manufacturing, small business, large business, with a low unemployment rate, it's a challenge. How much does that impact you, the low unemployment rate?
It really impacts us because we're picky about who we hire. But we started a program called Life After 2, and it's based on the fact that we do close at 2 o'clock. And our employees are able to go home and be with their families, or some of them are in school in the afternoon trying to work on their degrees. So we think that's really important.
Sepideh?
Very interesting.
So I love Biscuitville. I always get it in the morning.
This is not a paid endorsement.
I am serious. I really do. And I get a egg and cheese biscuit every time. I know which exit that I want to go to when I have long trips. So, and I think the brand is tremendous because it focuses on biscuits.
Right.
It's like Bojangles has it, McDonald's has it, but this. So why wouldn't you take this farther? I mean, like a Starbucks that does national. I think in California they would love biscuits because biscuits are not there. So what's the thought about that?
To go larger, we would need to franchise. So right now, we're a family business, privately owned, and we don't franchise. So we think our growth plan is best served adding restaurants in the 2-hour drive from our home office, which is Greensboro. So we have 54 restaurants. 55th is going to be in Walkertown, opening in November. And we want to do infill sites. We really don't have any restaurants in Fayetteville, or we have one in Raleigh that you're familiar with. So we think the infill site for now is the best way to grow.
No franchise.
When you describe kind of your rationale and the company and how you all interact with each other, it's hard not to think that you're my term, that you're channeling Truett Cathy from Chick-fil-A, that there's this sense of, that we really are close, that authenticity makes a difference. So, Burney, I guess the question is how, as chief executive, as your father is the founder, and in the family that's engaged, and even your senior leadership team, how do you really foster this sense of genuine concern and care from the top of the house to the lowest paid worker?
Sure, and part of that has to do with the culture of a company. So for me, I consider it an honor to represent the family and to represent Biscuitville. And I shouldn't say a lot, our leadership team feels the same way. And really that starts from the top down, to be able to cultivate that family atmosphere and that sense of ownership. So I feel like that's the way we do it.
But I guess to push it a little bit farther, I mean, how do you really find that person that fits that mold and is not just, again, my term, posing to get the job?
Sure. Interview, and it takes when we look at it, the higher you go up in the organization, obviously the longer you spend with that candidate, but you really do have to interview, and typically we're not interviewing as much for their skill set, but for the culture fit. A lot of people can do these types of jobs, but the question is, do they fit in your culture, and will they also attract other folks that you want into the company?
Is there a litmus test particularly that you apply to say, okay, they pass muster?
Yeah, one of the first ones I use is, can they smile naturally? If they can't smile naturally, I know that's going to be a problem.
Oh, that's good.
Now I'm
I'll use
self-conscious.
that.
Yeah, that is very good.
Now I'm
good.
self-conscious. Go ahead, Keith.
The colleges like Greenville Technical College, of course, are a major part of our mission is workforce development. And when you consider the challenge of the low unemployment rate, what can colleges like Greenville Tech do? I mean, yes, we have the institute, Culinary Institute for the Carolinas, and so there's an obvious connection there, but what more can we do to assist businesses such as yours?
For us, we're a people business, so the culinary side is really important, but the service side and teaching them how to interact with people, whether it's co-workers or customers, that is critical for our industry.
Very good.
As you were saying, service side, we have the same thing in my business, that's engineering. It's what distinguishes, I think, any business in this day and age is that part, the service part, the natural smile that you were talking about. So I think that's really important, what you were saying, and how you do it.
So how do you, taking both of those together, Burney, this idea of trying to find the right people, but you have to pay for that. there's a debate, and there's good arguments on both sides of the minimum wage debate about letting them free float and let the free market set minimum wage, or artificially putting a hard line in the sand and saying it's, it's going to be 10.5, 12, $15 an hour. How do you come down on that?
For me, I keep out of the political side of the debate and really try to approach it from a business side. I look at, we're all in the same boat, and we'll all have to, if they raise the minimum wage, we'll all have to raise our wage rate. So it really gets down to efficiency for me. If they raise it too high, we're going to have to find ways to become more efficient. The unfortunate part of that is sometimes that means you're reducing labor hours. But we're all in the same boat, so we'll just deal with it as it comes.
Okay.
That you're right. We are all in the same boat because we certainly, higher education. A lot of times people don't consider higher education a business, you might say, but we certainly have a bottom line that we have to pay attention to as well. And so when we look at serving our employers, again, businesses such as yourself, we look at how can we use technology, for example, to become more efficient. How does that play into addressing some of your needs, using technology, meaning online training across all 54 of your restaurants and so on? Do things like that work for the restaurant business?
They've worked for some restaurant businesses. We still stick with the old cue cards in training.
Sure.
You have the question on the front and the answer on the back.
Yeah.
And that's worked really, really well for us.
Is that the, let me follow up with that, because is that the same idea? You said something about, it might have been before we started the program, you said, our locations are really within 2 hours of our corporate headquarters in Greensboro. Is that this high-touch, hands-on, face-to-face kind of management style that you're doing?
It is. It is. And to get back to Keith's question, when I look at the technology, we think interpersonal is much better with guests than technology. So
Is there any, I'm sorry, Burney, is there any way to scale that, though? Is to take advantage of that technology but still apply that Biscuitville brand?
The restaurant chains right now trying to scale that, and some of them are being successful. What we have decided is we're going to let them pave the way, and then we'll follow in their footsteps and learn from them.
So not first adopter.
No, not first adopter.
Yeah.
Seppi?
I was thinking about education and the comments that Keith made. Also, I heard an interview with Howard Schultz of Starbucks who was saying they pay for all of the employees to go to college. And that's something that we're looking at in my business, to hire either from technical colleges and pay for their 4-year, to incorporate that into our system. So have you thought about education, payment for education?
Yes, we have,
doing that?
and we'll do a small stipend for anyone who wants to go to college in our company. But also the Life After Two is there so they can go to school in the evenings.
Transportation. North Carolina, South Carolina both have these huge transportation initiatives, not just to fund transportation and infrastructure, but to do it right and do it sustainably over a long period of time. You've got your trucks driving over surface roads here. How critical is transportation, at least in North Carolina, for you right now?
Well, I think it's critical for us and for North Carolina. Being a transportation hub, we're based in Greensboro, and that's one of the main things the Greensboro area is working on with our airport and the road systems. But for Biscuitville, having good roads is important.
Okay.
That same, again, like you said earlier, we're all in the same boat, you might say, because that transportation, the infrastructure and everything, of course, in South Carolina, the General Assembly just last year passed an initiative, or voted on and passed an initiative to repair the roads. And when you look at where Greenville is, look at where Charlotte is, and then look and think about where Atlanta is, we're in the middle of, on 85, we're in the middle of that business sector. And that creates for a very dynamic area. And transportation is key to that.
And we have about a minute left to respond to that.
No, I don't have anything further to add.
All right, well, let me follow up with this, because this would be important. So Does Biscuitville, and you've got about a minute literally left, does Biscuitville look at economic development to take transportation infrastructure a little bit further? How do you play or how do you support the economic development efforts in North Carolina?
So for us, we are involved in the Greensboro Chamber, and it used to be called Greensboro Partnership, but it is about economic development, and also the North Carolina Chamber. We're not involved in South Carolina yet, but when we go down there, expect to be involved because economic development is critical for all of us.
Do you, if you had to handicap when you might be in South Carolina, when would that be?
6 years.
Yeah.
I had to handicap it.
Okay, all right. Thank you for being on the program, Burney.
Thank you for having me.
And no
Pleasure.
pressure, but you know, everyone around here was expecting some biscuits when you walked in.
That's a lot of pressure.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Please
Thank
come
you.
back.
Thank you.
And SEPI, again, I'm glad you're on the program. Sorry it took so long, but welcome.
Thank you
to
very
the
much.
gang.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Keith, congratulations on that diversity award, and nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Don't forget, if you have any questions or comments, go to carolinabusinessreview.org. You can watch programs, you can make suggestions about programs, and also coming up, our special two-part from the South Carolina port over the next 2 weeks. Until then, Chris William, good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, BARINGS, Grant Thornton, Novant Health, Sunoco, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, and by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.